Welcome back to Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.
Good Sunday morning. You are listening to Access Houston. I'm your host, KG Smooth. Today we are talking voter education, early voting, all of that good stuff. It's coming down. As a matter of fact, I believe the day for early voting begins on October the 13th? The 19th. October the 19th. And in the studio with me, I have the founder of Elite Change Incorporated, Mr. Dallas Jones. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Man, you got some great pipes there, man.
Thank
Sounding good. So for those who are not familiar with, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I own Elite Change Incorporated, which is a public and government affairs firm. What that simply means is we run and manage political campaigns, issue campaigns. And so we are very involved in the electoral process. We have a number of clients that are on the ballot running for election in November here. And so we are the people that create the signs you see in the neighborhoods and for the different candidates, and the information are hanging out. And so that's what we do. And that's what I've done for a number of years.
Yeah, how has that been?
It's been wonderful, actually. Just returned within the last 2 weeks from Trinidad and Tobago, helping to run their national election for their prime minister. And so that was an amazing experience to be able to be a part of that. We won, which made it even better. And so it certainly was transformative for me to be a part of changing the world in that part of the Caribbean.
So your company is international?
Well, we do operate in 4 cities. We're based here in Houston with offices in Dallas, Baton Rouge, Jackson, Mississippi, as well as Washington, D.C. We have done some international business on the government side. This was our first international campaign, though. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we look forward to more. Hey, Trinidad was a beautiful country, so
I'm sure. And I wouldn't have had to leave.
I didn't.
So here in Houston, who are some of the folks that you've been working with this election cycle?
Well, this election cycle, I'm working with Amanda Edwards, who's running for city council at large, Chris Oliver, who's also running for city council at large, and who is running for city controller. In addition, I'm working to help to pass the Equal Rights Ordinance, Proposition 1 on the ballot, and urging voters to vote in favor of that Equal Rights Ordinance. So we're busy. And we've worked for a number of different folks in the past, like City Council Member Dwight Boykins and City Council Member Larry Green, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, and school board trustees. We work on races at all levels. So we love our clients, and they do good work to help to transform our communities.
Absolutely. You're listening to Access Houston. We're talking to Dallas Jones from Elite Change. So we've got early voting that is going to start here. As we know, we are in an election season, and it's not exactly the general election where we choose the next president. But we've got the mayoral race, we've got the city council race, as you just mentioned. So when it comes to voter education, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about voting?
Well, I think folks have to understand that the laws have changed, and so it's important that you have the proper identification when you go to vote. It's important that you have that identification matches what's on your voter registration card. And that's the big thing. That's the thing that'll stop you from having access to the ballot box. Understand that if you believe that you've been turned away, you have the right to cast what's called a provisional ballot. So it's important that you do that. Know where your early vote, or know where your polling location is on election day. Right. You can go to harrisvotes.com, and Harris Votes will be able to tell you where you vote on election day. But understand, during the 2-week early voting period, which extends between October 19th and October 30th, you can vote anywhere at any early voting location in the county. That they're open from 8 to 4:30 during the weekdays on that first week, and then 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the second week. So plenty of opportunity to get out there and vote. It is important. It is about who will lead our city forward. As you know, our current mayor, Anise Parker, is term limited.
Yeah.
And so we're going to elect a new mayor. And that person may be mayor for 2 years. They may be mayor for 6, depending on what Houston thinks about it. But we have to get out and make sure that we drop our conscience in the ballot box.
Absolutely. And if you need that information, again, it's harrisvotes.com. Early voting begins October 19th through the 30th. So with all of the new laws and all of the tricks that the folks at the top are trying to use to suppress the minority vote, just to be clear, from October 19th through October 30th, folks can vote early, and they can vote anywhere at any poll. At
any early voting location. If you go to harrisvotes.com, it'll give you a list of where those early voting locations are. They're probably about I want to say 30 or so of them around the city. Different locations that come to mind. You can vote at Palm Center or Sunnyside Multi-Service Center or Hiram Clark Multi-Service Center. And so they're in places like that, and they are and you have a right to vote at any one of those.
And to be clear, when it comes to identification, you need your ID to vote. Now, what forms of ID are acceptable now? Because, they keep, moving the goalpost, or they want to keep changing the rules as we're playing the game. So what are the acceptable identification that one needs to have when to go to vote?
So a Texas driver's license, a concealed handgun license. You can get an actual election identification certificate from the state.
Okay.
U.S. military ID card, citizenship certificate, just a regular personal ID, a passport. Any one of those types of IDs will help you to vote. Now, here's what's interesting for our friends that are students that are listening. You cannot use your student ID.
See, now that's one of the ways that they're trying to suppress the vote.
Right, and I'll tell you, having been a part of these efforts in Austin while these laws were being debated and fought, that was a huge issue, right?
Because it's ridiculous. I mean, let's just talk about it for a second.
Well, let's do it then.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. From my first time voting when I turned 18, and I have not missed an election since I was old enough to vote. I actually voted on my campus, on my university's campus, and that college ID worked just fine.
Where'd you go to school?
University of Cincinnati.
Okay.
In Cincinnati,
yeah,
Ohio.
Absolutely.
So why is that not acceptable? It's a picture. It has the student's face on there with their government name and more information on there. Why is that not feasible now?
So we're having a real conversation,
Absolutely.
Right? The reality of it is that there are forces amongst us, let's just say, that aren't as we understand that access to the ballot box has been something that has been denied to many of us since the beginning of this country. And so we also understand that while we have slowly gained access, I think there's some of the same ideology that tries to limit our ability to cast our ballot. Now, they will say it's to prevent voter fraud. It is to protect the integrity of the process. A student with a student ID, it means he goes to school there, which means it doesn't necessarily mean that he lives there, so he could actually vote in 2 places, right? At school and at home. That's their argument. But the reality of it is that there's been no case of this type of voter fraud documented around our country. And so these laws, which are sweeping strangely through the South, right, are limiting. And who does it affect? It affects people of color. It affects the elderly. And these are the folks that are going to be, because a lot of people, that are older don't drive.
Right.
So they don't have those types of IDs. And I'll tell you what's interesting when we talked about my experience in Trinidad, how they determined who voted. They took their finger and after you voted, you stuck your finger in ink, and that meant you voted. But if I showed up to the ballot and I didn't have my card that was issued by the EBC, or I believed that I was supposed to vote there, but you couldn't verify that, guess what they did? They let you vote. Why? Because you didn't have ink on your finger. So you didn't vote. You obviously had a right to, and so they let you vote, right? Democracy should be accessible to all of us. It's unfortunate, but now we have an obligation to educate our communities about the identification that they need. And it is these types of elections and making sure that we turn out and we support and we vote the right people in office that will prevent and help us to fight the type of laws that limit our access to the ballot box.
Yeah, it's so amazing. You're listening to Access Houston. We're talking to Dallas Jones from Elite Change. We're talking voter education, early voting, which is October 19th through October 30th. It seems as though we are going backwards, especially with the Supreme Court ruling a couple of years ago that had something to do. My mind's a little fuzzy because it was a few years ago. But yeah, there was a Supreme Court ruling that had something to do with the Voting Rights Act.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So they struck down a portion, I believe it was Section 4, Section 5 of the Civil Rights Act. And so that was a portion that required certain states with certain histories to get to have their any changes to their voting laws had to be approved through the Department of Justice. And so they struck down that provision, saying that it was no longer applicable, that it wasn't fair treatment under the law for these states. And so, it's very real. The Supreme Court made a ruling around the issue of Citizens United, which allowed corporations to be treated as persons. And so now corporations can spend gobs and gobs of money to help to determine who becomes the next leader of our country. I mean, so you're right. There are a lot of things going on. Yeah. There are a lot of things going on, but there's hope, right? And I think that your listeners are the ones. I'm always reminded of what President Obama said as in 2008. Going in talking about the fact that we are the ones that we've been waiting for, and I think that is what has to resonate, and we have to realize that. Resilience and getting up and actually going and dropping your conscience in the ballot box. That's what the process is about. What do you think? What do you stand for? What do you feel? Right? What drives you? That's what voting is about. And you exercise that in making sure that you elect a government that represents those values.
Right.
Those values that you encompass. And there's so much power in that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of things are in disarray now, because the general public, as I stated earlier, majority only go out and vote during the general election when it's time to vote for, a new president. We don't vote in the primaries when it is time to vote for a new congressman or a new senator, which we all should, because these people that we put in place for whatever district that you may live in, whatever district that representative represents for your neighborhood, they work for you. So we got to be smart and vote for the people that have the same interests as we do that lives in our district, because as we see now, if we don't share the same interests, if the interest is not common, then they're going to do what they want to do, and then we see things are not adding up when it comes to, certain neighborhoods getting new development versus another neighborhood that, gets development. So people wake up and go register to vote. If you are not already registered, is there a deadline to register to vote for this?
Register is actually October 5th.
So that's tomorrow.
Right.
So tomorrow is your last day to register to vote. If you are not a registered voter, tomorrow, Monday, October 5th, is your last chance to register to vote, and early voting begins on October the 19th. And then where can they go again, Mr. Jones, for the all the information, polling?
So harrisvotes.com it will be able to tell you where you can vote, how you can get registered, different places you can get registered. You can call the NAACP, you can call LULAC, you can call a number of different places to help you get registered before that fit deadline. Let me tell you something daunting. What's daunting is that in terms of this election coming up, and as people like me are designing strategies to make sure that our candidates win, amongst people that are 18 to 24, which I know a lot of your listeners are, that electorate encompasses 0.2% of the people that actually decide who becomes the next mayor of this city.
Wow.
0.2%. That means we're not voting.
Right.
And I want to be clear, my demographic, I'm not that old. I'm 34 years old. So, I mean, even in my demographic can do better as well. But the point is, all of us between 18 and 35 ought to be exercising our voice. It's important, y'all, because we're the only ones that lose.
Yeah, and the sad reality, and let's just talk about it and just be real this morning, when it comes to folks, especially, and I'm talking about the black community right now, some cats just want to take the easy way out. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to stand in line. And they have that, I don't give a F attitude. And that is the easy way out. And see, but then on the back end, when things are going their way and they're seeing, all of these schools shutting down and they don't have any place for their kids to go, and this and the third, and then everybody wants to complain. Well, it's like, well, nah, bruh, shut up. Because you can have your tail in line to get them new Jordans, but you can't stand in line to vote for someone that will affect your livelihood and your child's livelihood later on down the line. Right. Bruh, miss me with that.
That's right. And
for real.
That's right. There's a war going on. And the reality of it is, we're focused on the wrong things. You hit it on the head, right? Voting is for grandmama. Big mama votes. Right, and that's ridiculous. When you look at so many people getting locked up, brothers getting thrown away for having small amounts of an ounce of some herb. You
got a minuscule piece of crack cocaine, and there you go, 10 years.
Right? No, absolutely. Are you right? And so these types of laws are being decided, right? At communities, schools. We out there, we having kids younger and younger. Well, guess what? Your kids have to go to public schools. The school board is on the ballot this time around. Who's going to decide what schools stay open, what schools close? You need to be a part of that, right? It's and if not for yourself, for your children.
Yeah, at least
for your children, and help and be. I think it's about being a good citizen. It's about, if you love the H, like you say you love the H, well then go to the ballot box and again, let us know what type of leadership you want here in our city. Because guess what? It's cool if you don't. Nobody tripping. Right? Because the people at the top of the mountain are going to decide who the leaders are, and they're going to continue to have themselves a great time, make a bunch of money all around Houston, and you're getting the shallow end of the stick because you never thought enough of yourself to actually get involved in the process.
And that's why I say, when things don't go your way, don't say nothing. Quit your blood clot crying. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
You should have got your tail up to go vote. Man. Oh, man, we could do this all morning.
I know it.
Dallas Jones from Elite Change Incorporated. The last day to register to vote, if you are not a registered voter, is tomorrow, Monday, October 5th. Make sure you register to vote if you have not. Early voting begins October 19th. It runs through the 30th. You can log on to harrisvotes.com to find out all the information you need, be it, what sort of ID is acceptable for you to vote, to your polling place, to the candidates on the ballot, issues that are going to be coming up. So get her done. All right. And Mr. Jones, thank you for stopping through, man.
Man, thanks for having me, man. I've enjoyed myself.
Well, we got to have you back,
yeah,
brother.
I look forward to it.
No
look forward
doubt.
to it. There's a lot going on we can talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you have been listening to Access Houston.